When I'm at the Capitol and speaking to senators, representatives, I don't think that I'm going to change any of their minds. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to put a face to the issue. I'm there to be a trans young person very publicly.
The sheer amount of bills designed specifically to hurt me and my trans siblings means that I do not get to rest. We are so tired of constantly being humiliated, excluded, and treated as a monolithic other to be feared.
Stop hurting us, leave us alone. We are not doing anything to you, and we don't want to. We just want to exist. You're actively hurting us. You may not realize it, you may think that you're doing good, but you are harming so many people, and you need to know that. You can't hide behind the pretense of protecting children forever, because it's just not true. And the world is going to realize that.
Recently, anti-LGBTQ+ legislation focused on transgender youth were introduced by state legislators nationwide. These bills target an array of issues from sports bans to outlawing gender-affirming healthcare. Following the defeat of over a dozen anti-trans bills in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton ordered the Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate parents of trans kids under claims of child abuse. Trans youth, their families, and allies are fighting back. Indigo Giles is a non-binary student and activist at the University of Texas at Austin. They began their public advocacy during the 2021 legislative session. Giles was motivated to speak out on behalf of trans friends and youth who were too afraid or vulnerable to advocate for themselves. Giles was inspired by their parents, Mandy and Neil, who are allies and fellow activists. The Giles are one of many Texas families speaking out and advocating for trans youth rights. Their fight is long and challenging, but they are showing no signs of faltering.
I guess I got involved in advocacy for trans rights and specifically trans kids' rights, first and foremost because of our twins who are both non-binary. It was important for me that they know that I and we support them in every way. By trade, in education, I'm a lawyer. The proponents of these bills, they were not based in the law.
It's exhausting to keep fighting these all the time. It's terrifying knowing that our friends could be accused as child abusers, or that these laws can affect them in very real and very personal ways. Knowing that the top in power just don't care about our kids and don't see them as citizens who are deserving of full rights, which is just really hurtful.
Trans children just want to fit in, and for many of them, sports is one of the only places they feel like they can belong. Sports is a safe place for children to deal with their social and mental health, and taking that away would deeply negatively impact the health and safety of so many of them. Do not take this from them. The public opinion is overwhelmingly against these anti-trans bills.
I think trans kids are being targeted specifically because it's an easy issue to rally around for uber conservatives, because it's easy to make it seem like it's a different thing than it is by rallying around the cry of protect the children. Who's gonna think of the children? That's always been a tactic. And it's easy to spin kind of what's happening into kind of fear-mongering and incorrect portrayals to make it seem like a big scary thing that people need to fix, when that's not the case at all.
It's soul-crushing is what it is. And I can't even imagine being 7 years old and telling grown-ups, I'm a real person. Please leave me alone. Please treat me with respect. Please let me live my life the way I want to.
The DFPS here in Texas is basically what you would think of as Child Protective Services. I believe it was late February of this year, Abbot and Paxton released a directive basically saying that providing trans-affirming healthcare and basically doing anything that affirms trans kids could be considered child abuse. And so it acted as a directive and a permission for the Department of Family Service and Protective Services to start investigating families of trans kids as to whether they were abusing their children. This is a lot to handle for like 7-year-olds. They don't need to know about how much of the world hates that they exist. But this is what did it. This is what made them have to sit their kids down and explain and say, if people come to our door to ask about you, you need to tell them, no, I won't speak to you without my lawyer. They had to be taught how to lawyer up at age 7, which is so depressing. Lots of families who have had to leave the state for their and their children's safety. So many kids deal with so many mental health issues, crippling depression, debilitating anxiety because of their dysphoria. And having that alleviated creates that sense of gender euphoria that can save them from those dark places.
We should all wish to accept more transgender children instead of attending the funerals of dead ones. Thank you for your time.
It changed my life. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't been allowed to have that. I received a chest reduction when I was 17, actually 3 months away from turning 18, so just barely in the scope of Texas's nasty laws, if they had been passed at the time. And it was incredibly affirming for me. The first time I saw myself in the mirror, just wearing a normal t-shirt, I started crying because I was like, that's how I was meant to look. I finally feel at home in my body. I don't feel like there's a stranger in the mirror. There's just so much joy in knowing yourself and knowing yourself in such a true way.
If I had to share the most important thing I've learned about being a supporter and advocate for our trans kids, it's that they're the leaders. We have to follow their lead.
Support begins at home. Having that support of their parents and caregivers and family can really boost all kids, but in particular transgender and non-binary kids' mental health, help them be on a positive trajectory. And that includes things like believing your kids when they tell you who they are. I think having those pieces as the foundation, then everything else becomes a little bit easier. And then it becomes a little bit easier to advocate for your child.
Hi everybody, I'm Indigo. I use they, Z pronouns. I'm our Director of Communications, so if you see any really cute and funky and cool posts on the Instagram, that's me. Any graphics that you see, that's also me. And the newsletter is me. And I am a third-year psych major with a soon-to-be completed minor in Mandarin Chinese. And I'm a big nerd, so you can talk to me about anything nerdy and I'll love it.
I'm personally very optimistic about Beto. We need a rehaul of the whole system, basically, at its root. And starting from the top is a great place to do that. Especially a lot of young people don't realize how much power that they have to make that happen. But I'm gearing up for the next legislative session because I'm bracing for that to be just as bad as last time. And I'm gonna try and now mobilize a lot of people to get ready for that so that we can have even more people filling these seats. Even if we're not changing their minds, like we're making their day hard. Like if there's like 100 of us there to testify, they have to hear all of us. I've learned that I'm a very strong person. There's not a lot of people who can stand up in front of all of their state senators and tell them how wrong they are. It's really hard work. And I learned that I have even more love in my heart than I previously thought for the trans youth of Texas.
The fight for trans rights will continue as long as anti-LGBTQ+ politicians and groups try to deny them of their healthcare, dignity, and basic opportunities. By electing and supporting candidates who affirm their basic human rights, we can ensure that our fellow trans citizens are treated fairly and with respect from the government. Visit vote.org for voter registration and polling information. Make your mark by ensuring your voice is heard. The time is now.